Good stuff.
Okay.
Now, Unit 3 is mainly theoretical, as I've said before. But there's a spec sheet to look at, the cover sheet's there, and there's the e-book teaching and training in lifelong learning sector. The suggested evidence list. There's an amplification sheet in there as well to give you some ideas. We'll have a look at all these as we go through the session tonight. The submission unit. There's a PowerPoint for LO4. There's a PowerPoint for linking theories to practice. And there's a PowerPoint which I'm going to start shortly on LO1, LO3, LO4 and LO5. And there's one for LO2 as well. Now, I will go through part of these because obviously there is a resource for you to go through afterwards. I'll concentrate mainly on what I've put together for the suggested evidence. Yep, adjustable size. Boom. So 1.1, analyze theories, principles and models of learning. So again, in the ebook on there, you can read and respond. Theory can be read and taken from chapter 2 of the ebook, Teaching and Learning, and Enhancing Academic Practice. Yeah. Explained in ways in which theories, principles, models of learning can be applied to teaching and learning. Now, that was the bit I just showed you on there. There is a piece on matching theory to actual practice on there. So there's some good information on there that you can use. Analyze models of learning preferences. And this is an analysis from the models audio, visual, kinesthetic, we've gone through before in Unit 1. Now, I'm not sure because people have written in Unit 1 where it mentions the different learning styles, and again in Unit 2, it doesn't actually ask for an analysis of them. So it's worth having a look at what you've written because some people have actually analysed those and they'll be able to use the text from there to fulfil the requirements of this one as well.
Yeah.
But I say not everybody will have done that because it doesn't actually ask for it on those other units.
Okay.
1.4 is explain how identifying and taking account of learners' individual learning preferences enables inclusive teaching and learning and assessment. Now this one, you check your responses at Unit 1, covering the initial assessment. You may have evidence of this there as well. Yeah. So it's worth having a look at that. That's just a pointer there. And again, it depends on different people who have written different things. To give you an example, I think on Unit 1, you've got 15,000 words, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people have got similar. Some people have got about 12. Others have cleared it with about 8 or 9. Therefore, the content of what's in there will be different.
Yeah.
People's situations are different. How they actually work and how they operate are different. That makes a difference to the word count as well. But it also depends on if you get carried away with a subject that's close to you and you write probably more than was expected of you, then that work can possibly fit into this Unit 3. So, analyze theories, principles and models of communication. Now this is a specific. It's Unit 1, LOs 2.1, 3.3 and 3.4. But again, as ever, always check what you've written first. So that on those, it actually asks for an analysis. So if you've completed one on there, you can refer to that and just put a few link words together, half a paragraph just to explain why it matches up to this particular assessment criteria.
Okay.
Again, explain ways in theories and principles of models of communication can be applied to teaching, learning and assessment. Explains the ways in which theories, principles and models of learning can be put into teaching, learning and assessment. This is communication. Can you see the slight difference?
Yeah.
It catches people out, that I'll tell you. all it is one word. This is looking at models of communication. That one is looking at models of learning. Yeah. So a number of people, when they've sent the work in, 2 point through, they put C1.2.
Yeah.
And I've gone, right, okay. No, it doesn't. But again, check your responses in Unit 1 on where you cover communication processes in Unit 1.
Yeah.
Again, it then goes to analyse theories, principles, and models of assessment. So it's looking at the pre-teaching or learning process. It's then looking at how it's communicated, and this is looking at how the work is assessed, yeah, afterwards. So again, read and respond. Well, I suppose particularly on the assessment theory and the models of assessment. Explains in which theories, principles, and models of assessment can be applied. So you analyse what they are, and then how they can be applied to actually learning. So I put in here for that, apply any one model of assessment to your learner work, because there are several models. You mainly teach SEN, don't you?
Yeah.
So there will be there are a couple of models actually in there that actually are specific to SEN, so that you can look at those.
Okay.
Yeah. Oops. Again, it moves on then to curriculum development and analyse theories, models of curriculum development. Read and respond. Explain ways in which theories and models of curriculum development can be applied. So it's looking at the theories, making an analysis of those theories, and then explain how they fit in or don't to the actual things that you do. Okay. Most of the context for this LO4 is taken from Chapter 4 of the ebook, but also there's the PowerPoints that are on there as well will cover a lot of it. Okay. Now, with Unit 3, there are only 5 learning objectives, you'll be pleased to know.
Yeah.
And again, most of them, if you look, they've only got a couple of, apart from LO1, which has 4 assessment criteria, the rest of them are only 2. Yeah. So it is, although it needs a little bit more reading and research, it is a more straightforward unit than the others. In a lot of ways. In some ways, it's not, because in some ways, in the other units, you're writing from your point of view, specifically about you and what you do. That sometimes, well, for a lot of people, find that easier, because then it's coming from what they actually do, and they've got that experience to be able to put in there. Yeah. Yeah. Here, we're now looking at reflection and evaluation. Okay. Yeah. So you've already done a reflective practice on yourself at Unit 2, I think, 7.1, and 7.2 was actually your what you got from that reflection and where you could improve. So that covers that. But this is looking at theories, models of reflection in ways in which they can be applied to reviewing your own practice. Yeah. Okay. So the handout in there, the reflective teacher, and explain the theories and models of reflection and evaluation. Well, for explaining there, that's wrong. I need to actually. I keep finding bits that I've got wrong. Analyze, okay. Yeah. Right. Now, the last one is apply the theory of it's asking 5.1 to your learners. Use examples of your assessment work, explain evaluation, assessment, and how this is done in terms of you as a teacher. Reflection process, as in Unit 1 and 2, actually. Yeah. Yeah. So that is my bit to you on what sort of things you should look at. Okay. If we go back from there. And the majority is in Chapter 2 and Chapter 4 of this ebook, right? Yeah, well, yes, I do. I made a mistake, yeah. What I will look at is the amplification I put in for this one as well. But again, this is that one I sourced elsewhere, and yeah, basically it's just an ideas sheet as much as anything else. It's set out similarly to how I've set it out in that other sheet. Well, again, the unit aims in there, but then again, it's the learning objective, the assessment criteria, and ideas. Yeah.
Okay.
Theories, principles, models, procedural versus declaratory, knowledge, Anderson, skills development, Gagne, scaffold learning, Bruner and Vygotsky, knowing that, knowing how, Ryle, inductive, Bruner, deductive, Osbevell, and approaches, situated approaches to learning, Lavie and Wenger. Banking concept of education, Freire. Competency models, learning as change in behaviour, learning-based models. Dewey and Rogers, constructivist approaches, formal and non-formal learning, Herold. Those, or Hero, I think it's pronounced that. Dewey and Rogers stuff is actually used quite a lot in mainstream education now, looking at constructivist approaches and formal versus non-formal learning. So a lot of that is ideas, yeah?
Okay.
Don't get the impression you've got to cover all of that. That's just some ideas to play with for that, yeah?
Okay.
Explain ways they can be actually applied to teaching and learning. So again, applied theories, delivery guidance for this, there is none. But it's applied theories and principles, linking aspects of existing practice with any of the theories. So what I always reckon the best thing to do is look at the theories first and look at which of those tie in nearer to what you do, yeah? Or the way that you actually operate. In some instances, learners have come back to me and said, well, I do that, but I didn't realise it was from that theory. They'd never actually put that into position. So yeah, it helps in that way as well, because it then sorts out what you need to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it looks like developing competency-based programs. That's a lot of the apprenticeship programs are done in that way, but also individual learning plans, product-focused learning, outcomes, smart targets, applied constructivist approaches. Again, all of those things are ideas, yeah, that fit in with basically what you do. Models of learning preferences, Honey and Mumford, Gardner's multiple intelligences, Coffield, etc., a critique of learning styles, learning preferences, dependent on context. I mean, this is how shall I say? It's a very broad area in learning, because learning styles are something that we all know about, and we all try to put that into position. But with the best will in the world, it's difficult in a normal education base. It doesn't matter what level you're at. It's difficult to make sure that you cover everybody that you've got on that program within. I'll give you an instance. I'm delivering online now to you.
Yeah.
So what you're doing here, you're doing visual and basically audio learning as well. Mm-hmm. There's not much interaction apart from discussion, which I always look at this level. The discussion between us is more of a professional discussion, yeah, rather than a teacher learning discussion. Okay. So these are the things to look at when you're analysing the models of learning preference.
Yeah.
It's fairly recent. I mean, learning styles have been known for a long time, but it's only in recent years, at least recent to me anyway, when I'm going back to say the 70s, that it's become more of a major point in the way people learn. I never understood that I was a visual or visual to very few people are one single learning method. Most people are a mixture. Yeah. People that are a good mixture are great, because it doesn't really matter what you do with them, they're going to pick up learning. Yeah. Yeah. But people with a specific, I am not an audio learner. I know that. And if somebody, if I go to a lecture, I'll fall asleep, even if it's a subject that I'm really interested in. Yeah, if it's a pure lecture, I will doze off because I've not got that contact with it. I don't feel that I'm part of it. It just seems like an abstract thing to me. So, and it was only when I got into higher education that I learned why I didn't do very well at school. And it was mainly because most of the teaching was like that, very didactic. And that was the reason. Once I got into, I mean, it was an engineering background, but which obviously there's lots of things to look at, see, poke at, play with, mess around with. So that's when I started to learn, and it was only on that I realised that was the way I learned. So it's a challenging subject, that, because there are lots. I mean, if you look at there's probably 4 basic learning styles, but you go into some of these principles on here, and Gardner's multiple intelligences. It splits down. You've got 15 or 16 different learning styles. I mean, where are we going with that?
Yeah, it's a bit too much when it's like that, though, isn't it?
Well, this is where I said before, there are probably 4 major learning styles, but there are crossovers, and those are not. I wouldn't look at those normally. Personally, I wouldn't look at those normally as a different learning style. They're a mixture of other learning styles rather than a separate, different learning style, which some people, but detailed research has probably broken that down.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got a session plan. You've got any of the lesson plans that you've got. Look at identifying the account of learners' individual learning preferences, enables teaching, learning, and assessment. So, again, the importance of a multi-sensory approach to engage all learners, to challenge their dominant preferences to maximise learning, introducing alternative learning approaches, enabling individuals to see and question their long-held habitual behaviours, and to understand the strengths and weaknesses to develop a range of learning strategies. But again, as I've said, in practice, with the best will in the world, even if you're fully aware of all your students' preferences, you'll probably never be able to cover all of them at any one time. You can help, you can go towards that and try and work as much as possible towards that. But given time, resources, etc., it sometimes can be difficult.
Yeah.
I'm doing an analysis now, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We're allowed.
Yeah, so again, analyse the theories, principles of communication. Communication theories are language linked to stages of development. The role of language, how that, again, Vygotsky's useful on this. I find him quite useful. I've read quite a bit of his stuff. He talks about language in more than the spoken language, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And he looks at a different ways of actually communicating through unspoken language or signals, signs, all sorts of things of that nature.
So body language or eye gestures, things like that, right?
Yeah. And actually, sometimes it can be, I've seen this with SEN as well. Some have used for communication methods where they can't get a vocal response or a written response, they use smiley faces and things like that. Yeah, so they can underline the smiley face, how they feel, and things like that. Yeah,
feelings and if they're focused or not focused, or how their behaviour is, or
they've got serious behavioural issues. Yeah,
the whole social skills.
But body language, elaborate or restricted language codes, which I've just been mentioning, other forms of communication, accessibility, paper-based online, SMOG, the measure of readability, the use of chat rooms, synchronous and asynchronous, distance learning communication, email communication. Now, again, look at we use a lot of those, We make sure that what we put on is readable. I also don't use chat rooms, of course, but the distant learning communication is used email, text, and a number of other methods to actually use that communication. I'll keep that link between the tutor and student.
Yeah.
Explains in which theories and principles of modern communication can be applied. So again, it looks at verbal use of video research, use of voice, physical space, cross-transactions, impact on behaviour, group versus one-to-one, interaction, motivational language, feedback on process and product, empowering learners, developing learner communication skills and expressing empathic responsive. Yeah. Non-verbal, awareness of body language, accessibility, use of language as well. Sometimes the type of language that is used by a lecturer or the type of language that is used in written communication, giving you ideas on what to do and stuff like that, it can be written in such a way that it is above the level of the learner that it's being delivered to. Therefore, it loses all context, and you're just wasting your time. You need to simplify the language down sometimes. I've had a lot of experience of this with dealing with students whose English isn't their first language. So I have to be very careful how I phrase information. Because, as you know, quite a few English words can be taken 2 or 3 ways. So where that occurs, I can then take that word out and put a different word in that means the same thing or very nearly the same thing, so that there'll be no confusion for the student. Yeah. It's a bit like I did some work on dealing with students who were dyslexic. I didn't realise that writing in block capitals just meant nothing to them at all, because all the blocks were the same height. Therefore, they couldn't differentiate between capital letters and lowercase. So looking now at assessment. Assessment theories: initial or diagnostic, training or learning needs analysis. That should be training. I don't think I can change this one. I changed it. So a gap, right? That's better. Learning needs analysis. Learning needs or training needs analysis has to be done, especially in, as I've said before, my background is engineering apprenticeships. You need to find out what they don't know before you can start that training process. Measuring skills, the aptitude of knowledge, credible and compatible with learning program, promoting learning, assessment of learning and for learning, and part of the training cycle. For learning is the initial assessment process. Of learning is like the formative and summative assessments. Holistic approaches. This is something that even experienced assessors, in my experience, have literally no idea about because of the way they've been taught and the industry that they were working in. Some years ago, I did a qualification to become a key skills or core skills assessor. To do that, we had to do a level 4 in the major English, maths, and IT. I struggled with the IT, but I got through. But a lot of that, you had to gather evidence together. The assessor we had was basically asking for a piece of evidence for just about every criteria.
Yeah.
And where we cross-reference on here, he'd never heard of that. And he couldn't understand where I could say, well, we've covered that in that unit there, and I'm using that evidence again to cover this bit here. And it took me a long time with him. My boss at the time was doing the same qualification.
Yeah.
Not having an assessor background, she just followed him hook, line and sinker. She ended up with a huge portfolio with over 308 pieces of evidence, to fulfill the requirements of the standards. Yeah. I covered all the same things with 75 pieces of evidence.
Yeah.
So that is looking at holistically at the qualification and where you can use evidence on numerous occasions to fulfill the requirements of the standard, which is the same process I've followed with this for my students on here.
Yeah.
Looking at ways in which theories, principles, models and assessment can be applied in assessing learning. Now, the assessment process is a very wide subject. You will assess your learners in a totally different way than somebody assessing out in, say, a building site, watching an apprentice joiner or an apprentice bricklayer. The way you will actually assess, how you will gather the evidence will differ, but how they are put together into a portfolio will be the same. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the methods you use for assessment, you need to probably have a look at a wider range of those than you will normally come into contact with. Yeah. So that you've got a full understanding of how the assessment process carries on. As you get into higher NVQs, at the moment we've got a number of site managers going through a level 6 program in site management. As you can understand, that's quite a high level, and it's a huge qualification with 19 units. But a lot of that can be the assessor has been able to gather through professional discussion. That's a major tool working at that level, because basically it can record or video on a disc set up on the table, their discussion, so the discussion can be recorded, watched, and then at the end of the day, when that evidence goes into the file, I come in as IQA, I can watch a piece of that, listen to what they're saying and say, yeah, he's covering that, not a problem. So that method of assessment is widespread at higher levels on NVQ programs.
Okay.
But probably at lesser levels, it's not used as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a number of these. Some people use them. I've not used some of these, but I've used others. Formative assessment, exit cards, traffic light cards, questioning, the use of thinking and maximise learner engagement with questions, hinge questioning, inclusive questioning, no opt-out, cold calling, right is right, reliability, practicability, validity, sufficiency. One of the things is difficult to assess sometimes, and that is sufficiency. You've got to read carefully what the assessment criteria, not the learning objective, but the assessment criteria is saying. Because as an assessor, that is your Bible. Yeah? Analyse theories and models of curriculum and development. Yeah? Right, of curriculum development, that should be. So again, it's looking at these things on here. Maslow comes in again. But yeah, Piaget and Gardner, learner-centered, which is what is the way it's gone really over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Spiral, Stanwell, Waldorf, academic, product-based, Stenhouse, Tyler, situational model, skill-based curriculum as a process, pyramid or spiral, mastery, Bloom. Bloom's taxonomy, and so forth, you've probably been into before as well. Yeah? That's just carrying on from there, yeah?
Yeah.
Explaining ways in which they can develop and can be applied. So again, it's looking at specialist curricula. Again, you will be different than most mainstream, yeah?
Yeah.
But coming back to these are just ideas, just to give you some ideas on where you should be going with this, yeah?
Yeah.
Because I said, only a month had come back, learning styles, a lot of other things that cross over into here as well. 5.2, reflecting your own practice, individual reflective activities, action planning, produce your action development plan from reflective activity. References to previous units may be used in full or part. This is what I just discussed on my sheet, didn't it? It says almost the same thing on there. And believe me, I only found this after I'd done all that. I did make some alterations to some of my sheets after reading these, but basically they followed a similar pattern.
Okay.
So we'll get rid of that. Yes. Oh, that's right. So I am going to look at this one. Yeah. Theories, models, and principles. Oops. Consider the values of theories, principles for planning and delivering learning. Research, summarise, present, discuss learning theories. Review and evaluate and reflect on how theoretical principles are demonstrated in practice. So that is LO1 basically in a nutshell.
Okay.
Theories. Yeah. That's most people's reaction actually. A lot of the time.
That's my reaction.
Yeah. So yeah, I've got to read all this, but half of it's boring. These people must have a different head than me, and this is. I must say, I know where you're coming from when you go into there, but basically, it has directed how education has gone to some degree. I can look at this looking back over the last 30, 40 years, and the way things have changed drastically in that period of time. And it's been mainly down to theorists who have analysed how people learn, yeah, at different levels, yeah. Yeah, guide us in practice. They influence choices we make. Theory precedes practice, therefore drives practice. Don't quite agree with that, but basically that's what it's saying. We respond better to the individual needs of our learners, or we can respond. Popper, 1992, describes theories of nets cast to catch what we call the world, to rationalise, to explain, and to master it. How do we identify which are the most significant theories? I've actually covered that in the last half an hour, I think. It's looking at the theories and looking at the ones that match pretty much with what you do.
Yeah.
There'll be some that you'll say, well, that's absolutely nothing to do with me whatsoever. That's not something I look at. Yes, it's good to know, but this is the bit that I'm interested in because that is basically saying how we operate, yeah?
Yeah.
Go on. So you've got different theories. You've got behaviourist, constructivist, cognitive humanist, and situated learning theory. A lot of those are split into groups. So you've got behaviourists such as Sina, Leanne, and Russell, Farhad, Seth, Audrey and Charles, Rose, Jasmine, Gertie and Natalie. This is just as though you've got a group of students, yeah?
Yeah.
Humanist, Nathan, Lucy and Sophie, and situated learning theorists, James, Sheldon and Farrell and Mark, yeah? And it shows how those people, yeah, understand what you were actually trying to deliver to them, yeah?
Yeah. So in my unit 2, I started to explain this a little bit, these different theories.
Yeah. Well, that's what it said on that sheet, actually. If you may have parts from other units that you've written. And again, I can't remember what everybody's written, but I know that you've written quite a bit on there. So there may be...
I haven't handed in my unit 2 to you yet.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Explaining the different theories and breaking them down a bit.
Yeah. Well, again, you know what you've written. So therefore, you'll be able to look, does that match? Does it meet this criteria? Or do I need to link it with something? Yeah?
Yeah.
So we got the behaviourists, yeah? Pavlov, Watson, Thorndike, Skinner and Gagne.
Yeah. So I've looked at the first 2 and Skinner.
Yeah. Mainly focus on observing behaviours as manifestations of learning. Thus, the true theory, the theory states that learning is the acquisition of a new behaviour through conditioning. It's like if you want to formulate a new habit, they say if you repeat it for 30 days, you will acquire it.
Yeah.
Likewise, getting rid of habits that you no longer want to do, you negate them for 30 days regularly, and you will stop doing them. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like so positive, and you try to dismiss the negative, because if you see the negative, then that's the behavior they're going to apply to their learning.
You sweep it out of the way, but the other thing, I mean, that does apply in a lot of ways, but how can I say, it's difficult to take stopping smoking. Even somebody that really wants to stop smoking, to change the behaviour, some people find extremely difficult. Others find it no problem. Yeah. The 30-day bit works. It worked with me. I used to smoke quite heavily when I was younger, but I stopped. Just like that. Yeah. So in some cases, it depends on how focused you are, I think, that you can actually say, no, I'm sorry, I've made my mind up, I'm going to do this, and that's it. Some people find that extremely difficult.
Yeah.
So again, it's looking
strength of the mind.
Yeah. In some cases, yeah. But again, it'll give you a little activity. It'll give particular examples of where you've applied or can apply behaviourist principles in your own teaching. Spend 5 minutes in your group, but you're spending 5 minutes on your own, and then feedback to yourself. Is there anything on there that matches? As I've said, look at the theories and look where they match up to do that. Same thing as doing an activity, really. Yeah. Constructivist, Bruner, Piaget, Dewey, and Vygotsky. Like I said, Vygotsky's got quite a lot of good stuff in there that I can relate to quite well.
Yeah.
Why is that doing that? I'm sorry. No, it's correct. Probably just because it's American. It doesn't spell it like the Americans. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay. So it looks at the theory and it looks at the application in this PowerPoint. As I said, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go right through it. There's how many? There's 32 slides on here. Yeah. So that's twice as many as we've looked at already. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come down off there
So with that slide, are you saying that basically if I go through that slide, I'm answering LO1, 3,
well,
4,
what that PowerPoint does is cover the ideas for 101, 103, LO1, LO3, LO4, and LO5. That one covers LO2, and that one covers LO4 as well. That's a separate one for just for LO4. But again, these are teaching modules, so that if you weren't clear on any of the specific subjects on there, that's going to give you detail of it,
Okay.
Who the behaviouralists, what the difference is between the different theories or theorists, Some of them cross over and they cover more than one section.
Okay.
How far are you off with your Unit 2 now?
I've done Unit 2 up to LO2.
LO2, right, okay.
So I've still got the other 5 to do, but there's quite a lot of cross-referencing.
So what I'll do, I've hammered this fairly hard tonight. So what I'll do, I'll come back out of there and I'll just do a quick refresher for you with, oops, where's that gone? It's thrown me out. Just a second.
Logged you out.
Yeah. Back in. At least it works fairly fast on this. So I'm going to bring up the suggested evidence for level 2, for Unit 2, sorry. So just to recap on Unit 2, again, your first one is an analysis. You've covered LOs 1 and 2, did you say?
Yeah.
So again, you've got a cross-reference there. Make sure you included learning styles. Again, it's mentioning learning styles for Unit 3 as well. But it's, again, use your initial and diagnostic assessment to agree individual goals and learning preferences. So what you've got to do, if you've got an ILP and it's got a learning preference on there, you can refer to that and just talk quickly about it. That's all. Okay. You don't need to do any more than that. Devise a scheme of work taken into account of. So you look at the schemes of work you had at Unit 1, 3.1, and again, always check your cross-reference, check what you actually said meets these 3 points. So your scheme of work taking account of the needs of learners, the delivery model, how you're actually going to deliver it, and internal and external requirements, So if you're working towards an external qualification or level, then that's your external requirements. Internal are the procedures and curricula that you work towards inside, and the delivery model is the way you actually deliver it. And is it meeting the needs of all your learners? So again, it's fairly straightforward, and some of the work you've covered already in Unit 1.
Yeah.
Design teaching and learning plans which take account of. Refer to copies of ILPs at Unit 1, 3.2, checking your text again. But it actually, in Unit 1, 3.2, it looks at the individual goals and needs of learning preferences of all learners and curriculum requirements. Having said that, I'm not sure whether it covers learning preferences, but just check that it does,
Okay.
2.4 is cross-reference again. Identify opportunities for learners to give you feedback. You've explained already how you get feedback from your learners, but again, it needs to look at the and others. So if you're getting feedback from anybody doing a teaching observation or any of the other teachers that you work with, who is
one of my observations, isn't it?
Any of those, Again, 2.5. 8.1 and 8.2, again, you need to make sure what you've written there, because again, it may be short of what it's asking for here.
Yeah.
Just make sure that whenever you cross-reference anything, have a look at what you've said. Does it actually cover that? And if it doesn't, you may need to just like a link paragraph to match it up.
Yeah.
Because the actual cross-reference is relevant, yeah, but it may be short on content to make sure that it covers what that's for you. Yeah.
Okay.
This one on behaviour management. There is some reading material on there, some of which I've put on as handouts, so I know that's there. So you can read through those and look at the theories of behaviour management and do a short analysis of them and what you think of them.
Yeah.
Now, again, whenever you do this with any of these theories, if you're making an analysis when you get onto Unit 3 as well, an analysis is your analysis of it. So technically, provided it's relevant, there are no wrong answers. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's your view of what you've read. And if you are not happy with something or you don't agree with something, by all means say so.
Yeah.
And again, it's looking at how your own practice in creating safe and inclusive, establish a safe and inclusive climate. That cross-references directly from LO1 4.3. I don't even need, because it says exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Explain how your own practice in creating, I think, again, respond or add to your response at 3.1. Yeah. There is also further reading on safe and inclusive in Unit 1 resources. You have access to all the resources, so you know we've looked at those in the VLE. You can refer back to some of the Unit 1 resources if you need specific information that you've already covered.
Okay.
Again, should be in Unit 1 5.3, but you need to check your response to meet these two criteria. Yeah.
Mhm.
You may need to refer to Unit 1, but add further content here. Yeah, if it needs it.
Yeah.
Demonstrate flexibility and adaptability. Now, there are two here that say demonstrate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you can demonstrate to a certain extent by explanation. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, again, if you've got teaching observations that actually cover that, yeah.
Yeah.
By all means, refer to them.
Okay.
Again, communicate with learners, professionals, and others. Learning needs to encourage progression. Yeah. You've probably got plenty of information already on that. Cross-referencing LO1, 3.5 and 6.6. Checking content plus any records, IV reports, meeting minutes, audio, visual records, etc. That you may have. Yeah. Again, explain how your own delivery of inclusive teaching and learning has taken in account of those models, theories, and learning and communication. So again, it's similar to Unit 1, 8.1. But again, you may need to add an explanation where it meets the theories, models, and principles, yeah?
Yeah.
5.1 is design assessments that meet individual needs of learners. Now, again, this is purely down to your records of assessment method that you use and why for your two learners. Going back to Unit 1, for your two learners, those same two learners.
Checklist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, demonstrate flexibility and adaptability. This is where the one with the different need, yeah?
Yeah.
You remember what I said now in you on that some of this will reverberate all the way through the qualification.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is why I set it out that way, to make it more straightforward as you move on.
Yeah.
So again, how do you or would you change your methods to communicate with the learner, the one with a different need? I put how would you, because I think I put on Unit 1 that if you hadn't got a learner in that situation, make one up. Then they had a sight problem or a hearing problem or something of that nature, that you could show where you'd used a different resource or adapted a resource to make sure they were covered.
Yeah.
Demonstrate the use of assessment data in mentoring learners' achievement. That shouldn't be there.
So here I would use my IEPs and then what our conclusions were to move forward.
What it is, not so much the ILPs on this one, it's more the assessment.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
The results of the assessment, yeah?
Okay.
So
yeah.
with the results of an assessment, you can then mentor your learners' achievement, attainment, and progress, yeah? It could be that there hasn't been much, where the mentoring process will be important then to say, right, okay, this is the situation, where do we go from here, and how do we get there, yeah? So again, it moves on to setting learner targets, planning any subsequent sessions, and recording the outcomes of the assessment. So making sure that always any assessment is recorded in some way, yeah?
Yeah.
So copies of your records for your 2 learners with narrative showing where you meet the 5 point, basically, yeah? Communicate assessment information to other professionals with an interest in learner achievement. I think we heard that, and it's Unit 1, 6.6, yeah?
Yeah.
Refer to your records in your explanation, also reading resource on taking into account of the theories, principles, etc. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just the reading resource, it's on one of those, we're on LO5, aren't we? Yeah, it's on one of those, I think it was the PowerPoint I had up, yeah.
Yeah.
Further on it will come into that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
6. Well, LO6 is analyse ways in which minimum core elements can be demonstrated in the planning and delivering and assessing of inclusive teaching and learning. This is as Unit 1, 7.1, 7.2, but the slant is to assessment in your analysis, yeah?
Okay.
Apply minimum core. You can use reference to your teaching observations to support this, as this is a section on the observation sheet, yeah?
Yeah.
Where minimum has minimum core been developed in any sense in this particular lesson? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, use theories and models of reflection. So again, Unit 1, 8.1, but check that you made an evaluation as well as a review. You'd ask for a review, I think, on 8.1. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is asking you to evaluate the effectiveness of your own practice. The other one, I think, just asks you to
evaluate.
Just do a review of it. That's all. And this is asking you to do an evaluation.
Okay. I think mine was in depth then.
Yeah. Again, Unit 1, 8.2. Make sure you did an analysis before your evaluation. Yeah. That should say before evaluation. Yeah. No, that's wrong. Needs that up as well, doesn't it? That's better. Can't spell.
So basically, so you're thinking about your ideas before, and then after you've delivered, the ideas after.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What you're doing you're going to do a review or evaluation of the effectiveness of your own practice in delivering, assessing, and teaching and learning. So basically, an evaluation is saying what's good about what you do.
Yeah, and what could be done better.
Less good, and what could be done better. And then analyse ways that you can actually make it better. So just one follows from the other, just like 8.1 and 8.2. And again, it just depends how much you've written there. All I ask you to do is when you read what you've written on there, just check it against this AC. Does it fully cover that? Or do I need to link it to something? Yeah.
Okay.
And that's basically the rest of Unit 2. As I said, because of the amount of cross-referencing in it, it's fairly straightforward. And if you've written a lot and gone into quite a bit of depth on Unit 1, most of what you're doing is covered. But just make sure that if you're using any appendix, or if you're using any documentation to back up, just a slight, it may just need some more work, but it also might just need a short explanation of where it fits into this, why it meets that. And that, I think, covers enough for this evening, or your head will be coming off.
Yeah, I know. Then I'll be like, okay, I can't do any of this.
But as I've said, it does get easier. Unit 1 and 2 are, well, Unit 1's massive. Unit 2 is still quite big, but again, there is some backup from what you've already done. Unit 3 is a one-off, but it's a shorter unit. Yeah. And I think Unit 8 after that gets a bit smaller. I think there are only a couple of learning objectives in Unit 8. And then you've got 11, 13, 24, and 39, which again are more, they're about what you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, and again, there is sufficient cross-referencing in there. I think by the time you get to 24, which is teaching and learning in a specialist area, you will have already written just about everything there is to be written on that, and you'll be able to cross-reference a lot of your evidence for that unit from the work you've already produced.
Okay, great. Yeah, brilliant.
Okay, I think we'll leave it there for tonight and let you get a breather now. Absorb some of that in. Again, you know where I am. I'm on the end of the phone or whatever. If you're stuck with anything, just drop me a line or drop me an email or text me, and I'll get back to you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Phil.
Okay.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, same to you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye now.